Hey you, ready to dive into some drama?
Oh, always up for some drama, especially when it involves the wild world of online media.
Today we're looking at this whole saga with Brett Cooper and the Daily Wire.
Yeah, it's fascinating. A real behind-the-scenes look at how this digital landscape works, how these online personalities build these relationships with their audiences.
Yeah, and how quickly it can all change.
Absolutely.
So much to unpack here. We've got a ton of YouTube videos, reactions, all sorts of stuff.
So many different perspectives. Let's try to get to the bottom of this whole thing.
Okay, so for those not totally up to date, Brett Cooper was like a rising star at the Daily Wire.
Huge, especially with Gen Z conservatives.
Right, and she had this show, The Comment Section.
Super popular.
Really pulling in some serious numbers.
Consistently outperforming, viewership-wise, even Ben Shapiro.
No way.
Yeah, millions of subscribers, views often hitting like 7 figures. Wild.
Wow. So she was a big deal.
Oh, absolutely, a phenomenon.
And then all of a sudden, it seems like her producer, Reagan, starts filling in for her more and more.
Yeah.
And at first, they're saying it's like personal reasons, which, okay, that makes sense.
Seems plausible enough.
But then, of course, the internet does what the internet does.
Starts theorizing.
That
Goes into overdrive when Brett officially announces she's leaving the Daily Wire in December.
December of last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
And her statement, it was very carefully worded,
Yeah.
Emphasized it was her choice, but
What?
a lot of people picked up on her emotional state in the video.
Really?
Yeah. She seemed like she was about to cry. Led some people to believe there was something more to it.
More than meets the eye.
More than what she was saying. And get this, her TikTok fans had urged her to wear blue on her last day.
As like a signal.
Yeah, it's a subtle signal. If she was under an NDA, she wore blue. Cryptic messaging at its best.
Wow. So she leaves.
And almost immediately, the comment section with Brett Cooper is just the comment section.
Oh, wow.
And Reagan is the host.
So they just tried to seamlessly transition.
Like nothing happened.
Did it work?
It seemed to backfire big time.
Really?
Yeah. Within days of Brett leaving, the channel starts losing subscribers.
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands. Which is a lot, even for a channel with millions.
Yeah.
And view counts plummeted, comments flooded with negativity.
People were not happy.
Not happy at all. And what's really interesting is that the drop-off was way more than, the industry average for when something like this happens.
Oh, so it wasn't just, people not knowing the new host.
Right. It wasn't just that. It was a deliberate rejection of the change.
So they were tuning in for Brett.
For Brett. Not just for conservative commentary. For Brett.
Interesting. So what are some of the, main theories about what went down? Why this whole very public, very messy breakup?
Well, the most common speculation is, the classic contract dispute. And the Daily Wire, they have a bit of a history with this. Right?
Yeah. Public feuds and stuff.
Public feuds with other creators, Steven Trouter, Candace Owens.
Oh, right.
And it often comes down to contracts.
Makes sense.
Some people say that Daily Wire contracts are notoriously restrictive.
So, they have a lot of control over their creators.
A lot of control.
It's not surprising, really, I guess.
Right.
These big media companies always want to exert control.
It's the old way of doing things.
But in the digital age.
It's different.
Yeah. Where these individual personalities have such loyal fans, can that model even work anymore?
Good question.
Is it possible that Brett felt stifled, wanted more creative freedom?
Definitely possible. And then there are the juicier rumors.
Oh, like what?
Well, there are allegations about Jeremy Boring, the Daily Wire co-founder.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently he has, shall we say, a bit of a God complex.
Meaning?
Meaning he believes he creates talent.
Oh, so he can just manufacture stars.
That's the idea. And this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
This narrative feeds into the idea that maybe, just maybe, he pushed Brett out.
Because he thought he could just replace her.
Exactly. And who better to replace her with than someone he could theoretically control more easily?
Reagan.
It's a juicy theory.
It is. So we've got contract disputes, power struggles, maybe even a little bit of ego involved.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
There's more.
Oh, yeah. We haven't even gotten to the most bizarre part of this whole thing yet.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. What else is there?
The cloning allegations.
Cloning.
You heard that right. Cloning. Several YouTubers did. These whole deep dives into the videos, Brett's videos, Reagan's videos, side-by-side comparisons.
Oh, wow. So really digging into it.
Really digging in, pointing out all these similarities in their speech patterns, the way they use their hands.
Wait, really?
Yeah, even facial expressions.
I guess if they work together so closely.
Right, you'd think maybe some of that would rub off, but...
But people are saying it's more than that.
Way more. Like, almost intentional. Like, the Daily Wire was trying to mold Reagan into Brett 2.0.
That sounds crazy.
I know, right? But when you see these videos, the way these YouTubers break it down,
It's convincing.
it's pretty compelling. Like, they'll pause the videos at specific moments and highlight these tiny little things.
So what was the Daily Wire thinking?
If they were doing it on purpose, I mean, maybe they thought it would make the transition smoother.
Like, if Reagan seemed more like Brett,
Yeah, the audience wouldn't notice as much.
but they did notice.
They absolutely notice.
And they didn't like it.
It makes you think about, like, what audiences really want from these online personalities.
Totally. Like, is it just the ideas, the format of the show, or is there something more?
Something about the person themselves.
Right. Their personality, their style. It's almost like trying to replace the lead singer in a band.
Yeah, you can find someone who can hit the notes.
But they don't have that same energy, that it factor.
Exactly. And for Reagan, coming into this situation,
It was tough.
super tough. She's stepping into the shoes of this massively popular host.
With all this drama swirling around.
Exactly. And an audience that is already skeptical. Do we even know anything about Reagan's background?
I mean, before all this,
Yeah.
like, was she a seasoned commentator?
Not really. I mean, she was known as Brett's producer.
Oh, right.
And she had her own YouTube channel.
What kind of stuff does she do?
Lifestyle content mostly. Thrifting hauls, vlogs, that kind of thing.
So very different from political
Not
commentary.
very different.
Did you ever, like, address these cloning accusations?
She did, yeah. In one of her first episodes as host, she basically said Brett wasn't forced out. And she encouraged people to support Brett's future endeavor.
Nice. Trying to take the high road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she also talked about how she'd been working behind the scenes on the show for years, so she really understood the format and the audience.
Trying to establish some credibility, I guess.
Yes, totally. Trying to show that she wasn't just some random replacement.
Did it work? Did she win over the audience?
Not really. I mean, the Daily Wire really tried to promote her,
Yeah.
but the show just never took off the way it did with Brett.
The numbers stayed low.
Viewership stayed way lower than Brett's. Tons of dislikes on the videos.
Comments still negative.
Oh, yeah. Still lots of comparisons to Brett.
So they just weren't buying it.
Nope. It makes you wonder if there was anything she could have done differently. Like, was she just doomed from the start?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, she was up against it from the beginning.
Some people said she should have addressed the cloning thing more head on.
Like, really lean into being different from Brett.
Yeah, maybe try to establish a totally different style, you know?
But that's risky too, right?
Super risky. If you change too much, you might lose the people who like the original format.
So it's a tightrope walk.
Totally. And you have to remember, she was probably dealing with pressure from the Daily Wire, too. They probably had their own ideas about how they wanted the show to be.
And maybe that clashed with what the audience wanted.
Could be. So it's not just about Reagan, right? It's about this whole ecosystem of factors.
The audience's loyalty to Brett, the cloning stuff, Reagan trying to find her place, the Daily Wire pulling the strings behind the scenes.
It's a mess. And honestly, sometimes you just can't replace someone.
Especially when the audience feels like they have this personal connection with the host.
That parasocial relationship, it's powerful, and it's not something you can just manufacture.
So does that mean a show can never survive a host change?
Yeah.
Like, if the content stays the same, does it even matter who's delivering it?
It's a big question.
Yeah.
And it's something that everyone in media is trying to figure out right now.
Because these individual creators are becoming so powerful.
Exactly. The old model is being challenged.
This whole thing with Brett and the Daily Wire, it's like a mini version of that bigger shift.
It is. And it's happening everywhere. News, commentary, entertainment, even those like lifestyle channels we were talking about.
So what happened to Brett? After she left the Daily Wire, I mean, did she just disappear?
Oh, she did not disappear.
I didn't think so.
Remember all those fans who were so upset when she left?
Yeah.
They followed her.
Of course they did.
She started her own YouTube channel.
Now,
And it blew up. Hundreds of thousands of subscribers before she even posted anything.
wow. So she's doing fine without the Daily Wire.
More than fine. She's thriving. It just shows you the power of that personal brand, that connection she built with her audience.
Did she ever, like, spill the tea about what went down at the Daily Wire?
Not really. I mean, she's been pretty quiet about the specifics.
Okay.
But there have been hints. Like, remember that Turning Point USA event?
In Arizona.
Yeah, when she mentioned leaving the Daily Wire.
And the crowd went wild.
Went wild. Cheering, booing the Daily Wire. It was a moment. But even if she hasn't given us all the juicy details, she has talked about how important it is for creators to own their own platforms, to have control over their content.
Like, she's advocating for a more independent model.
Exactly, where creators aren't beholden to these big companies.
But is that realistic? Can everyone do what Brett did? Or is she a special case?
Well, it's definitely getting easier. There are all these new platforms popping up, Patreon, Substack, even independent podcasting networks. They're giving creators ways to connect with their audience directly and make money outside the traditional system.
It's a whole new world.
It is. And it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out.
Like, will we see more creators going independent? Or will the big companies figure out how to adapt?
It's hard to say, but one thing is for sure, the audience has more power than ever before.
They're the ones who decide who wins and who loses.
Exactly. And that's why this whole Brett Cooper saga is so fascinating. It's like a case study in how this new media landscape is evolving.
Okay, but what about Reagan? What happened to her after Brett left?
Well, that's where things get a little complicated. Reagan, she tried.
To make it work?
Yeah, to connect with the audience, find her own style, her own voice.
Did it work?
But Brett's popularity, that whole controversy, it was a lot to overcome.
Yeah, tough spot to be in.
People kept comparing them.
I guess it's hard to escape that legacy, huh?
It really is. And the viewership, well, it just kept going down.
So even though I guess she was talented in her own right.
Oh, yeah. She's definitely capable,
But it wasn't enough.
the audience just wasn't willing to, fully embrace a replacement, I guess.
It goes back to that whole authenticity thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. People can tell when something's not genuine.
When someone's trying too hard.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of the big lesson here,
About this whole Daily Wire saga.
It's not just about conservative media. It's about the whole media landscape.
Like, audiences are looking for real people.
Real people, real connections.
And that's something that's hard to fake.
You can't manufacture it.
So where do we go from here? I mean, what does this mean for all of us,
Us as viewers, consumers of all this content.
Yeah. What should we be thinking about?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to just be aware, be critical.
Of what we're watching, who we're listening to?
Exactly. Ask yourself, who am I choosing to follow? What are their values?
And why do I care about what they have to say?
Yeah, it's about making conscious choices.
Because at the end of the day, those choices, they reflect on us too.
They really do. We're all shaping this media landscape together.
So if you're listening out there, let us know what you think. What are your takeaways from this whole Brett Cooper, Daily Wire, Reagan situation?
Yeah.
This has been a wild ride, but it's been really eye-opening. And, keep an eye on both Brett and Reagan. I have a feeling we haven't heard the last from either of them.
Definitely not. The story's not over yet. But for now, thanks for diving into this with us. It's been a fascinating journey.